Happy Wednesday. This is Nitya Ramachandra from the NR Media, NR Hour Sports Show, back with another episode. We have a special guest today on the show, but before we introduce him, fans, please tune in. You already know we are live on iHeartRadio, Spotify, on all the podcast platforms, and on my phone. Everybody knows this about the Speaker app, where the fans can tune in, ask questions. So please line up your questions on my phone on the Speaker app. I can read it off there to today's guest. But without further ado, we are we are pleased to have Tim Dillard. He's a former MLB pitcher. He pitched for the Milwaukee Brewers. He had a lot of time in the minor leagues too, but when he got to the majors, he had a great career, in my opinion. Underrated pitcher. He brought the submarine-like delivery to the mound, and he had an awesome career. And now he does some pregame, postgame stuff for the Milwaukee Brewers. And he was in Nashville this year for the winter meetings. He told me he didn't have any business, but he went there to meet some of his former teammates. And whoever doesn't know about Tim, he's known for impressions. Also, throughout his career, I found some pretty funny videos of you doing some impressions for Tim Kirchin. So we'll get to all of that and other things also. But Tim, thanks for joining the show. How are you and your family doing? And welcome to our family. And you stay tuned because you're in for some crazy questions from our fans also. So please stay tuned there. But Tim, welcome. So
yeah, thanks for having me on. No, family's good. We're just getting ready to go travel and see some grandparents and things like that. But kids have been out of school this week, so I usually put videos on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook about me waiting in the car line to pick up my 8-year-old. So if you get a chance and you're really bored over the winter, check those out. But yeah, there are no videos coming up since the kids, are not in school. So, oh well.
Yeah, let's start off before we get to your career. Let's start off. Obviously, you were in Nashville, and what did you like about this year's winter meetings? Let our fans know, because there was a lot of buzz going around, in my opinion, with all the this off season has been electric. By the way, I think historic off season for baseball. So, what was when you were there? What was the buzz like this year?
It was good. So I went to the winter meetings when they were in Nashville in 2015. I think was the last time they were there. And it was bigger. They had a trade show. They had like a whole floor devoted to, like, I don't know, every bat company had a little shop set up in there, gloves, batting gloves, helmets, anything, jerseys. It's where the first time I ever saw Cheeto infused popcorn that they were trying to sell. So like, it's all this huge trade show, but they didn't have that this year.
Yeah.
It's something that I heard everybody wished was came back. So that was one thing. So I guess it wasn't as big in that way, but they had a stage set up for MLB Network. They had all the radio stages set up to the side. Got to see Stephen Vogt. He was just getting done interviewing about his new job, and so I talked to him a good bit. I don't know, just made the round, saw CC Sabathia there. I was actually getting a picture taken by somebody. I guess there were people there that had cards to get signed, and I for whatever reason they had my card. They were like,
Oh, wow.
"We just figured you were going to show up," and I'm like, "I didn't think I was going to show up till like an hour ago," and I just decided I was going to come up here. But we were taking a picture, and Tony La Russa literally walked straight into the photo and was like, "Whoa!" I was like, "Please tell me you got him in the photo." They're like, "Oh no, I didn't." But anyway, that's kind of what it was. Saw Frank Thomas walking around.
Yeah.
It's the winter meetings, to me, is crazy how accessible everybody is. Like, if you're a baseball fan and you have a chance to show up at the winter meetings, you should. It is just, you walk in, you don't have to pay anything. You just walk in, you could see everybody. Anybody that has to do with baseball, decision makers to TV people to scouts. There was a lot of people there looking for like the analytical type jobs. Because that's how you get, that's how you meet people. That's how you see them and get your name and foot in the door. So the first time I went, I was asking for a job to try to keep pitching. This time, luckily, I kind of had a job already doing the broadcast thing. So for me, it was just to have fun and see people. But it is really cool. If you get a chance, you got to go.
Yeah, that's one of our goals, is to cover one eventually. And a couple of my friends were there this year also covering it. And meaning by historic, I meant was like, obviously it was quiet for the first 3 days, but the last day you got a boom when the Yankees traded for Juan Soto, the last day of the winter meeting. So were you there when it happened, the trade, the big trade?
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, the stuff that happens doesn't always happen at the winter meetings. It's always that's where the ground is laid. That's where the foundation for this stuff happens, because all the top people are there. All the teams are represented by their top people. Saw David Stearns, who was with the Brewers, now he's with the Mets. He was in a hurry to get something done, and I made sure I stopped him. I felt bad, but I was just like, "Hey, I know you." And so I think these conversations with teams go on, but nothing gets done really till they're probably back home and they have a chance to kind of dive a little deeper into what they want to do. But guaranteed that conversation probably happened a few days prior and probably didn't come to fruition towards, till the end of the winter meetings. But I the buzz around it was that the Ohtani news was going to come like, the next week or weeks after. People were anticipating, hoping it would happen then, but what I was hearing is that nothing was going to happen at the winter meetings.
Wow. Yeah, so let's get to your career. And you were born in Sarasota, Florida. And how did Tim Dillard get into baseball? From being from Florida, obviously, baseball is big in Florida too. But when did you start getting into baseball?
Well, I got two older brothers, and my dad, he played in the big leagues before I was born. And by the time I was born, he was a minor league coach. So we lived in a little tiny house in Florida, but the backyard was awesome, like a flat black, like just flat as can be backyard. And he built a baseball field back there, just a little league size field. So we actually had practices for like our little league teams back there. And me being the youngest of three, when they wanted to be the shortstops, I had to be the first baseman. When they wanted to pitch, I had to be the catcher. So I was kind of the whipping boy in that way. And it worked out. Like, it made me good at, every position on the field. And I was a catcher all growing up, got drafted twice by the Brewers as a catcher.
Yeah.
And anyway, that ended up leading to pitching, which I had done a little bit of in high school, a little bit in college. But when the Brewers had the rights to me and I was going to go back into the draft in 2003, they were like, well, we think you're a better pitcher than a catcher and you might have a longer career. I didn't believe him at the time, but I decided, well, if you're going to pay me some money to do it, then I might as well give it a chance. And anyway, signed with the Brewers and ended up playing 18 professional seasons and never missed a game due to injury. And I just didn't stay long enough in the big leagues because I just wasn't good enough. No other reason.
I mean, well, like you're so underrated in my opinion.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, so before we go any further, we are live with former MLB pitcher Tim Dillard. Please tune in, fans. Put line in your questions on my phone on the speaker app. I'll answer from there. So Tim, talk about obviously talk about you got drafted. I mean, you went to the draft 2 times and you got drafted by the same team. How ironic was that? And how weird was that? How did that line up, by the way?
Yeah, exactly. Well, lived in Florida for about 12 years, moved to Mississippi. My mom and dad were high school sweethearts at the same high school that I ended up going to, and was playing high school baseball there. And I don't know, we were on a road trip, whatever that entails. Can't remember what city we went to or town. So we're in this town, played a game. I was on deck, I think, in my first at bat, and I kind of look over and I see a guy just standing there, and I'm thinking, this isn't anybody's dad, but ended up being a scout. It was a Brewer scout, Jonathan Story. And anyway, turns out there were 2 scouts there, one for the Royals and one for the Brewers. But I ended up having the best game I'd ever had in high school. I hit like 2 home runs, had a double, single. I caught 6 innings, threw out, I think, 3 runners, and then I pitched the last inning and I struck out the side. So it was like the best game you could possibly have. Yeah. And anyway, afterwards, the scout was like, hey, can you mind hitting on the field? And I was like, sure, I'll hit on the field. And yeah, so I ended up taking batting practice at my dad threw to me, which I'd been hitting, taking batting practice off him my entire life. So anyway, kept absolutely crushing the baseball and ended up getting hurt. I actually hurt my left shoulder in that moment, which was strange because I didn't know how it was going to end up leading my career, but I kind of felt like a slublux in my shoulder is what it was. But anyway, the scouts were like, dude, how come no scouts have been following you? And I said, I don't know. I'm in a little town in Mississippi. I doubt they get this far, Anyway, as things progressed, there ended up being 2 other scouts that liked me as a pitcher because I would pitch really well. So anyway, the Brewers ended up drafting me in the 15th round. And this is back in the day. I had to go to a friend's house who had the World Wide Web.
Yeah.
If you remember the World Wide Web. And had to load the page or whatever of the draft. That's how the draft was. And so Anyway, we weren't even through the first round, and I got a phone call from the scout guy, and he was like, "Hey, we just drafted you," and I'm thinking, dude, I just got drafted in the first round. This is awesome. Um, it was not the first round. It had trouble loading, so it was the
Wow.
15th round.
Oh,
And then the next year, I didn't even know I was in the draft or even eligible because I was actually rehabbing my shoulder. I went to junior college, so I was trying to rehab my left shoulder, and got a call from Larry Aaron, Hank Aaron's son. He, I think he's still a scout with the Brewers. He called me and says, "Is this Tim Dillard?" And I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, this is Larry Aaron with the Brewers. Just want to let you know we drafted you in the 34th round."
hmm.
I was like, "Okay, cool." And I was like, "As a what?" And they're like, "I think catcher." I was like, "Oh, great, thanks."
Wow. That's
And that was it. And then I got better with my shoulder in my second year of junior college, and I was hitting good, I was catching good, I was pitching good. And then the Brewers just decided, hey, we want to sign you before the draft, and we wanted to sign you as a pitcher. So
hmm.
that was kind of the journey. It was a worldwide, World Wide Web.
Worldwide.
Yeah, it was a wild ride. There are a lot of details in there that kind of led to the moment, but yeah, that's kind of the summary of it.
Well, I mean, that's a great story because I feel like the team, I mean, it means a lot to a player to have a team that believes in you
Mm-hmm.
from day one, and they
Sure.
scouted you. And it seems like the Brewers scouted you from the beginning, from day one, and not these other teams, but the Royals were in there, but the Brewers were the main team for you. So, what was that like? What did that mean to you as a player? To have Milwaukee believe in you, and when you were going through the injury problems, they still believed in you.
Yeah, no, you're right. That's awesome. I never really thought about it in that particular way, but yeah, there was a Royals, an Expos, and a Marlins. If you
Oh,
remember the Expos,
mm,
so I think that's who it was. Um, but yeah, I guess I'd always thought in my head my favorite players were like, the players that were there all the time,
mm,
like the Tony Gwynns and the Ryan Sandbergs and Cal Ripken, like the guys that just were with the team and that was their team. And
yeah.
I don't know, I wanted that. I was always, I'm drawn to that kind of loyalty. And so, yeah, my relationship with the Brewers started in 2001.
Mm,
And right now I'm still, technically with the Brewers,
yeah.
and 2024 is coming up. So I didn't know how it was going to go about, but I was, glad that they kept pursuing me. And that happened. I was with the Brewers for 10 straight seasons before we parted ways one off season. They just didn't sign me back. But then I went to independent ball, went to Mexico. Anyway, got back with the Brewers. So I was again with the Brewers, and then they didn't sign me again in the off season. And then I went and played independent ball, and the Brewers signed me again. And so that was kind of the repetitive thing my last however many years. Is the Brewers are like, hey, we don't need you, and then suddenly they're like, hey, we do need you.
Mm,
And that was rinse repeat. That's kind of what happened. And but that's the way the minor leagues are. You have to fight and claw and beg and be ready and be willing to do whatever you got to do to keep a jersey on and to get a jersey. So I don't know. That's kind of the way I was raised. Like, how bad do you want to play? And so apparently I had wanted to play really bad because yeah, it's a tough life. And my wife is so glad that I've retired from
mm.
it.
Hey, that means you can spend more time with the kids and your wife.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I hear a couple of them in the kitchen right now.
oh
Hey, y'all
wow.
keep it down. Y'all keep it down in there.
Yeah, so we do have a fan question here. This
Mm,
popped up on my phone, and one of our fans wants to know. So, you mentioned earlier that you were a hitter too, catcher, and doing multiple things. So they want to know this. They want to know where did you ever think to yourself maybe you could have been a like a Otani type of player?
yeah, I mean, I don't know what year it was, but I remember I think it was maybe Brandon Woodruff or somebody. We were in AAA. I can't remember who it was. Maybe it was before Woody, but one of the players, we were sitting around talking one day, and they're like, "Yeah, I was a PO in high school," and I was like, "What is a PO? I've never heard of that." They're like, "Pitcher only."
Mm.
I was like, it never dawned on me. I'd always thought you need to play every position, growing up. I got my kids, I want them to learn every
Yeah,
position. And then you're going to gravitate towards one as you get into high school and college. Um, but for me, it was you could always go back and pitch. If you can play shortstop, then you could probably take an off season and learn how to pitch.
yeah.
If you're a catcher, you definitely can do it. Look at Jason Mott. Like there's a lot of catchers that end up becoming pitchers. And kind of revive their career that way. And so for me, I was like, if I wanted to pitch, that's always secondary. But for me, I wanted to be a catcher. I was tall, even though I was, but that's what I wanted to do. They're like, oh, you can be a pitcher. It's like, man, you play different positions. It's going to help you. And so as a pitcher, I knew what the catcher was trying to do. I knew what the third baseman's going to do on a bunt play. Like knowing each person's role made me a better player on the mound, just because of that experience. And I don't know. I guess the question is, could I have been a Otani type player? Absolutely not. Could I have made it to the big leagues as a catcher? I think so. I think I could have. I actually am a career 182 hitter in professional baseball. I got a 500 batting average in the big leagues right now. I check swung a ball into right field against the Braves in 2008. I'm sure you read about that.
Yeah.
I got I think 3 home runs in the minor leagues, 1 in AA, 2 in AAA.
Huh.
So yeah, I could handle the bat a little bit, but the grind it takes to be a catcher is hard. It's the spring training where you're catching 5 bullpens a day mixed in with a game later that day where you got to catch how many innings, all that to pay off to get to a season. And then you have to learn every single pitcher.
Yeah.
You have to learn what they like to do, how they like to pitch. And then if you're in AAA, the revolving door of pitchers is ridiculous. And then you get to the big leagues and it's like heightened. I mean, you have to be the quarterback out there and know all that. I think I could have done it. In this day and age, it's harder to be a catcher probably than anything else on the field, just with all the things you have to deal with. But anyway, catching wasn't my path. Hitting, I love to hit. I thought I could have been a phenomenal hitter. I was actually a switch hitter a little bit in Little League. So for any parents out there and kids, like, go for it. Like, learn how to hit left-handed. Who cares? Right-handed. Whatever you're doing, just learn everything about the game because it's not going to disappoint. For example, when I was on the mound, and I would know how many pitchers the catchers had to learn. So I simplified my signs for the catchers. I simplified them very easily, and I would tell them my signs every single day. And because the catchers would change too. You come in one day and, oh, that guy got called up. Oh, that guy's hurt. Oh, here's a new catcher. So I would just remind them of my signs all the time. And I would tell them what I wanted to do, to the point where if I texted Jose Trevino, he's a catcher for the Yankees. If I text him right now and said, what are my signs? He could text me back what my signs were. And it gets repetitive, and they probably get sick of hearing it. But at the same time, when my number is called and I go jog out to the mound, all they're going to hear in their head is what my signs are. Wow. So I know PitchCom, they have that in the big leagues. I don't think it's in the minor leagues yet. So anyway, just those kind of hurdles. You got to be smart to be a catcher. You got to be dedicated because, like I said, it's harder now than ever. But yeah, I could handle the bat. I could handle myself behind the plate.
Yeah, so then we should set up a competition between you, Mad Bum, and Kershaw then.
Bumgarner wins. That guy like chops down trees for exercise in the off season. I don't think anyone's beating him. But yeah, pitchers can hit. I mean, they're athletes too.
The bat they can hit too.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Because a lot of times in our day and age, like I guess the group that you just named there, the ones that are upper 30s and the 40s, they still in that era where it's like, you still hit. If you're left-handed, doesn't mean you're just a pitcher. Go play first base. I've talked to 2 parents in the last couple of months. Their children are left-handed, and getting into high school, or maybe one of them is in high school, and they're like, well, the coach is saying, no, you can't be a catcher, even though he's a phenomenal catcher. He just happens to be left-handed. And I was like, I don't think there's anything wrong with being a left-handed catcher, because if a scout comes to watch your kid play, or he sees him in a tournament or whatever, their first thing they're going to say is, oh, look at this left-handed catcher. This is ridiculous. He'll never go anywhere. What they'll see is if he can catch as a lefty, he can do anything. You can put him at any position. This kid can play. That's what scouts think. Like, if you can catch, you can do anything, especially if you can hit. It's like, man, this guy could do it all. So yeah, don't shy away from whatever the ability is. I mean, I guarantee probably Clayton Kershaw caught a game sometime in his, his amateur playing days as a kid.
Yeah. So tell our fans, what did you learn in junior college that helped you get to where you're at right now? And tell our fans about the junior college experience. And also, what did you learn from that injury that you recovered from, and being able to come back and to be on the mound again?
Wow, that's a great question. Well, first, anytime you get an injury, it's tough. It's going to be tough on you mentally as well. So for me, it was just, how do I get back healthy? Tell me what I got to do. And so I had to learn how to go through the therapy and figure that out. And um, in particular with the injury, it just helped me learn to take care of myself. Like, ask my kids. We've never gone snow skiing, sea doing, four-wheeler riding. Like, there's, very applicable stuff where it's like, don't do this if you don't want to get injured. And then there's just keeping yourself healthy, which I was able to do my entire career. But it did stem from, man, I overexerted myself. You feel really good one day and you're like, I'm just going to go jog, or I'm going to go do this. And then you end up hurting yourself. On the days you feel the best are the ones where you got to make sure you're very careful. And so in the baseball realm, it's like, man, you threw 2 innings yesterday, but I woke up today, my arm feels great. And so then you're like, well, I'm going to go long toss. Well, I've had those teammates that would do that. And I'm like, dude, I'm telling you, especially in my older years when people would listen, I was bearded and wrinkly, and I'd be like, hey man, y'all pump the brakes right here. Just because you feel great doesn't mean you should start doing more. And so you injuries kind of help get you to listen to your body a little bit more. And so if you want to stay away from injuries, then you need to get your your hearing working. So yeah, in junior college, I learned how much work it takes. In high school was, I don't want to say easy, but I was good. And so I could kind of roll out of bed and play. Junior college, I went to junior college because I was getting recruited by Ole Miss, and I went for a visit, and they were like, yeah, you're going to pitch, you're going to catch, you're going to, be our guy. Especially because I was in state, I was in Mississippi. And so they're like, we don't have a roster full of guys from this state. Here's a guy from Georgia. Here's 2 guys from Florida. Here's 5 from California, Texas. We want guys from Mississippi. And I'm like, sweet, this is working out perfect. My dad went to Ole Miss. I was like, this is going to be amazing. And then I went for a second visit, and they're like, well, maybe you'll just pitch. And I was like, oh. And then I went for a third visit, and they're like, well, you're just going to be redshirted. And I was like, all right, I ain't coming here. I want to play. So I ended up going to junior college just because they were like, yeah, you're going to play. And that's, if you want to get better at baseball, you have to play it. Whatever that looks like. If you're sitting around not doing anything, like, go play baseball if you want to get better at it. You want to get better at fielding ground balls, go field ground balls. If you want to get better at hitting, face pitchers. If you want to get better as a pitcher, face hitters. Like, that's the secret that's so obvious that everybody's looking for to get better. So for me, I just wanted to play. I needed to play. So working through an injury, trying to get back out there, playing against grown men. Like, I was 17, I guess, my first junior college game, 17 or 18. And, I'm playing against guys. Some of them are like 22 years old. Wow. So this is the first time I'm full grown, and, I'm playing against older guys. And so that kind of helped me get ready for pro ball, to kind of go through that, playing against better, stronger competition. And another thing too, you go to junior college, you don't have to stay 3 years as you do in you go to a 4-year institution. So yeah, I played 2 years and then got out. I got a chance to go back. I told the Ole Miss guys, like, yeah, I'm going to come there, after I leave junior college. I lied. I knew I was going to sign professionally. So yeah, I kind of use that as leverage, but yeah, junior college kind of gets a bum rap, but there's some phenomenal players that go there, and they go there because they're serious minded. They don't want to sit at the bench. They want to play. And they know that all they have to do is get looked at. If they have if they have good numbers and they're playing well, I mean, scouts will find you nowadays.
Yeah. Like, not only baseball, but other sports, a lot of players from other sports, they go to junior college, especially football. It's big in football too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
College is big. And I feel like you said, you hit it on the head. Like, if players want to improve on their game, go to junior college. They will teach you a lot there, and they will help you guide the right to your path where you wanted to be. So that's what they did for you. And we have another fan question here. One of our fans wants to know some of your best moments in your career.
Oh, I don't know. Even the bad ones were good. If you're gonna give up a home run, give up a home run in the big leagues, right? Because you're still in the big leagues.
Yeah.
I don't know. We clinched in playoffs a couple of times. The Brewers did when I was there, not because of anything I did, but I got to experience all of that. Had some phenomenal teammates. I was there when CC Sabathia got picked up by the Brewers. What he did for the clubhouse, just how he was, his grit. No one's had a season like his.
Oh,
since 2008. As far as innings, I think he's pitched more innings in 2008. No one has pitched that many since. Nobody has had that many starts since. He's done some pretty amazing things. The only person that's even come close, I think, is Justin Verlander on a couple of seasons. So just what he did was historic, and it's still lasting. So kind of being a fly on the wall, that would be my memoir name, Fly on the Wall. Just because I was there and I got to see all these moments. My best personal moment, I guess, would be maybe have to be I got a win in Miami, in the old Marlins Stadium, the football stadium.
Yeah.
And it kind of fell into my lap. It was an impossible situation, and they were like, Dillard, you're in the game, because we're not going to use, this guy wasn't pitching that day, and we're not going to use this guy. And I was kind of a last resort, and I got out there, and I was like in bases loaded, 1 out or something like that, or nobody out, and ended up getting out of it. I gave up a ground ball to third base. I think Craig Counsell was playing third, and he backhanded a ball, fell into foul territory, threw the runner out going home, ended up getting a double play or getting it out, and I pitched an inning. I don't remember all that part of it. I just remember at the end of the game, the TV guy wanted to talk to me, and I was like, why you want to talk to me? He's like, because you got the win. I was like, what? We went extra innings. Braun ended up hitting a home run, and anyway, it fell into my lap, and it was really cool. I just kind of shrugged it like, oh wow, that's awesome. I'd never had a win before. Turned out to be my only major league win. And I didn't think, anybody would think much of it. And but when I got in the clubhouse, the whole team was there. The whole team was there, yelling, and they were celebrating. They were already celebrating me before I even thought it was that big of a deal. And it was a cool moment that I'll take with me. But I have lots of moments, whether it's a bus breaking down, on a minor league road trip, or rain delays where you're sliding on the tarp, or I don't know. There's all sorts of stories out there. That's what's fun about the minor leagues, which I have more experience than the big leagues. Is you're playing baseball, and it is stressful, but you're not at the level of the major leagues where everything's under the microscope and you stress about it. And so, it's hard in that way. Sometimes the minor leagues can be really fun just because it's a little bit more relaxed, and you get to see some stuff that you just don't see in the big leagues.
Yeah. So before we get back to the Brewers, tell our fan. I want to go back to your delivery, and how did that process start for you? And tell our fans, how did anybody in the baseball world influence you to change that, to do that delivery, or did you come up with yourself? To talk about the submarine like delivery to our fans.
Sure. Yeah. So when I first got with the Brewers in 2003, they mainly had me in the bullpen, and then 2004 I was in the bullpen, maybe had a couple of starts here and there, and then they put me in the starting rotation in 2005, and I had a great year. I was the minor league pitcher of the year for the Brewers, and then went to AA in 2006, and I did really well there as a starter. And then I was in AAA in 2007 as a starter, and I didn't do that great. AAA is a different beast. Back then, I think I was 23 maybe. And I'm facing dudes that I collected their baseball card. Like Sandy Alomar Jr. was like on the team I played against. I was like, are you kidding me? I was a catcher. I have your baseball card, man. And now I'm trying to get you out. That's the difference between AAA. That was the biggest jump back in those days. So it didn't go well. They ended up putting me in the bullpen. And then in 2008, they put me in the bullpen completely. And I had a great season. They got me to the big leagues. And then in 2009, they're like, we want you to go to AAA and be a starter. So I was a starter, and they called me up to put me in the bullpen. So there's just, you get the sense of like, it's just a roller coaster. It's up and down, up and your starter, your reliever. And those are two very different beasts. What I did as a starter is completely different than what I did if I was in the bullpen. And there was times I didn't know what day I was going to show up. Am I starting or am I in the bullpen? And that's kind of a tough place to be. And so in 2010, I show up in Arizona to spring training, and the Brewers go, we want you to throw sidearm. I was like, what? You could have told me this all off season while I was training. But they were like, listen, you're big, you're strong, and we think you can do really well sidearm. Because over the top is, I threw for my whole life. I always had a good fastball, had a good sinker. Sinker got me to the big leagues. I had some velocity. But I could make the ball move. The only thing I couldn't do really well is have a consistent slider or a consistent curveball or changeup. I needed another pitch. And so they were like, well, you have a great fastball. And if that's all you're going to have, then make it be sidearm. And so I went and did sidearm all of 2010, tried to figure it out in AAA. And I felt like I was hitting my stride towards the end. So 2011, I come back. Ron Renicky takes over the Brewers. He sees me in spring training, and he's like, "Dude, I think what you're doing is great." He's like, "I'd love to have a guy like you on the team." And so, sure enough, ended up getting back to the big leagues in 2011 as a sidearm. They called me up like in May, and it was awesome. I was like, I can't believe, but they were the ones that initiated it. And sometimes you have to have someone come to you and give you advice. And for me, it was Stan Kiles. He was my AAA coach, and he was my big league coach later on. And when I was debating in 2010, like, man, do I change my entire career to this? Because you're not just changing an arm angle, you're changing how you grip the ball. You're changing how you pitch hitters, lefties and righties. I mean, all the implications of this, especially at a guy that was not on the roster, and I had a chance, like, if this didn't work out, I'm fired. Right? Like, my career is over if this doesn't work. And Stan Kiles came up to me and he said, "Listen, man," he's like, "sidearm's a weird thing. Sidearmers are weird. Pitchers are weird in general." He's like, "But sidearmers are just strange." And he's like, "You're the strangest guy I know." He's like, "This fits for you." He's like, "I know maybe it's hard for you to see it, but this is made for you. You're made for this. You can do this." And he was right. So I ended up my last 11 seasons in pro ball. I threw sidearm, and it was amazing. I didn't think it was going to be how it went, and people that were, coaches and teammates that I had in my career. So yeah, my career would not have gone that long had I not changed to sidearm. And so you have to be willing to evolve in your game and what you do. And it's really tough for players, especially pitchers, because we're super stubborn, and you have to be stubborn. So if you're a young player out there and you're listening, it's like, well, this is the way I've done things. I've had success, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you have to evolve in certain ways, and it's tough to do that. But it's necessary.
Well, shout out to the person who convinced you to change your delivery, and that helped out big time.
Yeah. Well, I didn't know at the time. The Brewers basically said, like, you can do this or you can go find another job. I was like, let's give it a try. But it was ultimately my decision.
Yeah.
As it is any player's decision. Hey, we want you to throw this pitch. And, you don't have to do it. Sometimes you got to be coerced to do it. Maybe you don't feel like it's working for you. And it's a very fine balance. And when you start getting higher levels and it's your job and it's your income and it's your future, it becomes big decisions. Like, they even gave me a day or two to think about it. Like, hey, talk to your family. It seems ridiculous now, but it's like, yeah, it's a big decision.
Another fan question here. One of our fans wants to know, who was the toughest hitter they had to face in the majors?
Ooh, toughest hitter. Probably, I had a lot of, everybody was good against me. Kidding? Let's see. I faced Tyler O'Neill and Patrick Wisdom when they were with the Cardinals in AAA.
Oh, wow.
They crushed me. Of course, we were playing in Colorado Springs, which is like 6,000 elevation. So anything they would touch, it would be a double or a home run. Toughest hitter. I had a hard time with Yadier Molina.
Mm-hmm.
Molina had like 3 doubles against me and 2 at bats, which I'm not even sure how that's possible, but I feel like that's what he did. Rafael Furcal. It was guys that had very level swings. So if I'm throwing sidearm and my ball's moving horizontally both directions, curveball going one way, fastball going the other way, if you just got your bat on that plane, you would have success against me. And so some of the guys that I had the hardest time with are the guys that had a very level swing. So there was a couple years there where I had to learn about bat path and how my pitches need to go against what these guys were trying to do. And so anyway, those failures there facing, the Cardinal lineup in 2011, facing those kind of guys, it taught me a lot, even though I wasn't, didn't have a good chance to get back at them. It helped me be a better ball player.
Well, yeah, so going back to the Brewers, you played with some great players throughout your Brewers career. But talk about when they made that huge trade for CC Sabathia, and like you said, he changed the whole vibe around the locker room, made the playoffs that year. But talk about that when they finalized the trade. What was your guys' reaction to that? And you guys knew that they were committed to win that year too.
Yeah, everybody was looking for, like what piece do we need? And people forget Ben Sheets. I think he was an all-star that year. I think he started the all-star game. That's how good he was, but he was injured down the stretch. So it made the CC thing look even better. but people knew him. Like I think David Risky, a guy we had in the bullpen, they were best friends. They were friends in Cleveland, and he knew before almost anybody. I think CC texted him like, "Hey man, I just got traded." It's fun to hear CC tell the story because
Yeah.
he had that view of it and everything, and I think he had just come off winning Cy Young. So I mean, just what that means in the clubhouse to guys, they're just like, wow, when a team goes out and makes a move like that, like a big move, like we're going to go get the best possible piece, it sends a vibe all the way through the clubhouse going, hey, we're all in. Everybody's in, not
Yeah.
just the players, not just the coaching staff, the front office, the entire organization is going, we're going for it. And it made everything better. CC's an incredible person.
Yeah.
He was in the clubhouse. He would put on movies on days he was pitching. He had a different pair of spikes for every game,
Mhm.
and it didn't matter who you were. He would talk to you. But we've had wonderful conversations. I was just nobody. I'm still nobody, but he would still. He goes out of his way to talk to me. He invited me over to his house. Like, hey, my mom's cooking food.
Wow.
Need you to come over. Just that type of guy. And he gelled right away because we had people like Prince Fielder in the clubhouse. Prince Fielder is phenomenal teammate, best ever. And having guys like that kept it loose, because if you lose a game and you come joking in the clubhouse, it looks bad. But if you're the best players on the team and you lose and you're willing to shrug it off, it helps everybody shrug off.
Yeah.
Like once the game's over, you can't do anything except prepare for the next game. So that's, if you're a young player out there, as soon as the game's over, it's over. There's nothing you can do about it. You learn from it, sure, but it's all about getting ready for that next game. So don't dwell on it at all. Don't let it eat you alive. And I've been in clubhouses where you don't have those guys that can put out that vibe. And when you lose, everybody comes moping in and you just sit at your locker and you're like, it's like your dog dies every time you lose. And so that doesn't need to be the culture that's in a clubhouse. And so the best teams out there have great culture where it's like, hey, we lost, big deal, get ready for the next one.
Mhm.
And that's the mentality that that those powerful guys like CC and Prince, that's what they bring.
Yeah, I had the opportunity to meet CC in person a couple years back. He was doing a cooking event for the kids at a middle school. So I was there helping out, and he was there, and then
Nice.
that's where I met him. He's awesome, great person,
Yep.
obviously great career, Hall of Fame career in my opinion, and then he's doing great things now for for the game of baseball, growing it, and
Yep.
being the international group now in baseball.
Well, I had a chance to talk to him during the summer, this past summer. So he works for the Yankees, but he also works for the MLB commissioner's office. So, all the rule changes that went down, he was all in and around it. And so I guess he has Rob Manfred's ear in a way, about these rules and what they should look like and what they shouldn't look like, which is fantastic because, he's helping keep the game, the integrity of the game, because he's been there. He's not that far removed from playing. He still has a ton of buddies that are still playing. He knows all the coaches. He's very well respected by players and coaches. So like when he says like, hey, this rule shouldn't be this, or this rule should be this, I think it'll work. It holds way more weight than some fan that's never done it, doesn't know anything. So that made me feel better. Once he was telling me that, I'm like, wow, I feel a little bit better about these rules because he's helped taking care of how all this plays out. And he's very sensitive to that. So anyway, I was like, I didn't know he was that involved.
Yeah.
So I was like, good, I'll stop yelling at everybody in the commissioner's office about some of these rules being dumb.
CC doing a great job there also, and helping keep the game alive. And we have an interesting question from one of our fans, and we had Jabba Chamberlain on the show last week, and
Sure.
someone brought up the beard question to him, the beard policy from the Yankees to him.
Hmm.
So one of our fans wants to get your thoughts also on the Yankees beard policy, and Jabba said he doesn't really like it anymore. But what's your thoughts on it?
I mean, I'm been institutionalized. When I was with the Brewers, if you're in the minor leagues, you had to wear your pants up.
Hmm.
And so that was it. Everybody had to wear pants up. Didn't matter what you looked like, didn't matter whatever. That was the rule. And so I was like, okay. So I didn't mind it. I had pants up. And then you get to the big leagues and you saw all these guys wearing like the biggest possible longest pants, because it was like they're rebelling against the minor leagues. You get to the big leagues, you can wear your pants as big as you want. So there's a lot of years there where you see these guys get to the big leagues. And so a lot of organizations were like that too, like pants up in the minor leagues, big leagues, wear your uniform however you want. So you saw this wave of, early 2000s, where these guys are wearing these huge pants, and that was the reason they're kind of rebelling against it. Probably the same reason if guy leaves the Yankees, suddenly he grows a beard, like Johnny Damon did, right?
Yeah.
Or was that vice versa?
No, I think it's vice
Whichever.
versa.
Maybe the other way, but that's the idea behind it. I don't mind the no facial hair policy. I don't care. I think you're allowed to have a mustache, and I think you can have sideburns
Yeah,
as long as
mustache
they
you're
don't go
allowed to have.
past your ear.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, to me, that's what comes with it. I mean, if you're going to be a Yankee, that's their rules. Like you're allowed to do that. If you're in charge, you're allowed to do that. If they want to change it, then great. But I don't know. I think it's cool for every team to kind of have their set of whatever.
Yeah.
Once I came to spring training one time in the minor leagues, and the Brewers were like, "Yeah, you can wear your uniform however you want to now," and I was kind of like, "Oh," so I kept wearing them up. I like the look. I think they should bring back stirrups and do that whole thing. That we would have these turn back the clock nights where we'd wear like the old school type unis, and pants, like those big, baggy pants. I loved it. I mean, I think it's a comfort thing. If you can play better with the pants up, do it. If you play better with the pants down, then by all means. If you wear the mids or whatever they're doing now, it looks terrible. But if it's not too tight for you to run or pitch, then by all means do it. So I don't know. Rules like that don't bother me. Like I was always an ant, right? Like organizations, they want ants. Like you're part of this thing. It's not all about you. You're important, but you're an ant. So if you want to act like a grasshopper, like you want to fight against this, then go be a grasshopper somewhere else. We want ants. So I don't mind being an ant. Told me to shave, which that was the policy too. They couldn't have facial hair in the minor leagues. It's like, I'm okay with that. Whatever.
Yeah. So talk about what was it like being with the Milwaukee Brewers? You had an all-star roster, in my opinion, when you started your career there. Jason Candle, Prince Fielder, Ricky Weeks, JJ Hardy, Ryan Braun, Mike Cameron, Corey Hart, Greg Counsell, Gabe Kapler, Russell Brand. I can go down the list, but what was it like being part of that team and also playing in Miller Park in front of those fans?
Yeah, I mean, that year for me, it was stressful. Every time I'm on the mound, I'm like, I don't want to screw this up. And I had a great start. My first like 7 or 8 games, I don't think I gave up a run. The first run I gave up in the big leagues was in Colorado, which it's hard to escape Colorado. That's for sure. I don't know. It was just every day you came to the clubhouse, you couldn't wait to get there. You couldn't wait. And because you saw, all this experience and how amazing these guys are. And you knew they're all going to go do something great afterwards. Like the people that you just named, like look at Gabe Kapler. He just, became a guy with the Dodgers and then, a manager. And I'm not sure who he's with now, Marlins or something.
Assistant GM to the Marlins now.
Yeah. So like guys like that, I mean, I've known for, a long time now. See Ryan Braun about once a year, something going on in Milwaukee. Ricky Weeks, just saw him at the winter meetings. He just became the assistant manager of the Brewers. So kind of hearing him and kind of his, approach to all of it. I actually get to see Ricky when we usually do fantasy camp for the Brewers every January. He won't be there this year. Apparently, managing a team is more important than fantasy camp. But we're coaches at the fantasy camp. So I don't know. It's all about camaraderie. If you enjoy your teammates and your teammates enjoy you, the game is that much more fun.
Yeah.
And if you talk to any of these guys, like, hey, what do you miss most about professional baseball? It's usually the clubhouse. It's usually the dugout. It's the bullpen, because everyone knows how special it is to be a part of a group like that. And you'll do whatever it takes. That's why I just kept playing as long as I could, because I loved the clubhouse. I love the camaraderie, because you can't replicate it outside of a team, because, maybe football can, because you have so many guys. Basketball, sure, you only have 10 on a team, I guess. Something special about baseball, though, because you have guys from, different countries and different backgrounds and cultures, and you put all that together, this mosaic of all these different pieces, and you put it together, and somehow it works, and you get to live life with these guys for 6-7 months, and it's a very special thing. So in particular to that year in 2008, you just had a group of guys that just knew what it took. There were no problems. Everybody loved everybody. you couldn't wait to get to the field because you're like, you're going to see something amazing. And you've never seen it before. You're going to show up and, Ben Sheets is going to be doing something, or, Russell Branion will hit one to the moon. He just could crush. But that was the exciting part of it. It never goes away. The being in a clubhouse is the greatest. It really is. It's so much fun.
And also Alcides Escobar, whoever doesn't know about him, you guys
Yeah.
had him, 21-year-old. That's when he, I think, started his career, and when he became Alcides Escobar, a great shortstop. Obviously played with the Royals also, and this guy, I think this guy, whoever doesn't know about Alcides Escobar, this guy worked hard throughout his career, and he made himself into a known player now.
Yeah, Esky. Yeah, he was awesome. He was my shortstop in AAA, I guess in 2007, 2008, maybe 2008. He was phenomenal. Every time catcher would throw it down, he would short hop him to start an inning. He would short hop him on purpose. And so Esky, he could pick it. And so every time I got a ball back on the mound starting an inning, the ball was scuffed. They just loved it. One time I get a ball back and it was like completely like destroyed, and I look over there and Esky's just laughing. Like he was that good. Like baseball's never been that easy for me, I don't think, but guys like him, so comfortable in their range, their arm, how to field a ball, how to pick a ball, that it's really fun for them. You see this, I saw the same things. Yadiel Rivera was my shortstop for a couple years. Arcia. Orlando Arcia, fantastic. Like these guys become very memorable because of just how they play the game and how they maneuver. Esky was one of the first though that I had that was just like I'd give up a ball and I'm like, golly, that's another hit. And then Esky's like backhanding it in the hole, throws a rocket across the line. You're like, are you kidding me? Saw Esky on the mound one time. He threw like 95, 94 off the bump, just goofing off. They had to tell him to stop because he was, just throwing laser beams, and they're like, hey, don't get hurt.
I mean,
it's incredible.
It's like, I'm not saying he was Derek Jeter, but Derek Jeter-esque, like the type of plays he made.
I mean, he may still be playing somewhere. I mean, I thought he was done. I don't know what year it was, and all of a sudden, boom, he popped up on somebody's roster in the big leagues. I was like, are you kidding me? Like, if you're good, you're good. I mean, and he was one of the type of guys that you knew at some point in his life took like 100 ground balls a day. Like you just don't get that good by not practicing. Like he could not wait to go field ground balls. He would field ground balls as long as they would let him. Like he'd ask for guys to come out early. Hey, I want to field. And because you could learn how to catch it so many different ways, that he could catch it on a dead sprint. So when you say Jeter-esque, it's like this guy's dead sprint, scoops it up, and then it's just about getting the ball to first base. So, I mean, it's a rare thing. I think a lot of times it gets overlooked, like, okay, well, he's talented. It's like, yeah, he was talented, but he took it to the next level because he was willing to work at it.
All right, so there's another fan question here. This is a pretty good one here, but Milwaukee and Green Bay is known for beer and cheese.
Ooh, yummy.
Yeah, Wisconsin cheese and also Milwaukee Brewers, a lot of Brewers there. So one of our fans wants to know, since you played in Milwaukee, they want to know what's your favorite beer over the years.
Ooh, favorite beer. Man, there's so many breweries there.
Yeah.
And I've been to most of them. There's one there called, I think it's City Lights. No, maybe not that one. Good People, Good Place, City Place. I can't remember the name of it. It's called Firefly. It's probably one of my favorites. It's a very cloudy IPA. I don't know. Actually I have a beer of mine. Really? That was made. Yeah, give me a second. It's on my shelf right here.
Yeah,
I got two of them actually. Those. All right. This is from Broken Bat Brewery, which is one of my favorites because it's got a baseball theme. This one right here is called the Bearded Stirrup IPA. That's me on the can. There's my little logo.
That's awesome.
It's a very cool can. It's still got beer in it. I don't think I should drink it, but
drink it right now. Not okay.
Well, this brewery decided to make a couple of beers of mine. This one right here is called the Very Pale Ale, because I'm very pale. Translucent, I don't know why I'm so pale, but like you go to do your hands under the water thing and like the sensor doesn't go off, like translucent almost. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Very pale ale.
Wow.
It's actually really good. Both of them are really good. They don't make them anymore because it was like a limited thing, but they've reached out. They want to do another one in the future. So
Oh wow.
yeah, Broken Bat Brewery. If you have a chance, you're in Milwaukee, go visit this place. It's got everything. It's delicious beer, and they actually have a indoor wiffle ball field, which you got to check out. Kids love it.
Wow. So tell our fans, and for you being part of Milwaukee sports history, and a lot of hit. I mean, the Bucks winning the championship event, obviously, and then yeah, Aaron Rodgers played with Green Bay for a while, and now he's with the Jets. But talk about what sports mean in Milwaukee now, the growth of it from when you played and to now in Milwaukee.
Well, I didn't know much of, I would say much about it when I was drafted by the Brewers, but as I was with the Brewers for a little while, I actually got to go to um, Miller Park in 2004 when I was in A ball. I was in Beloit, Wisconsin, and we played the Wisconsin Timber Rattlers in Appleton. But we played at Miller Park, and so that was the first time I was like in a big league stadium, standing out there, and it was pretty awesome. And there was a lot of fans that showed up for that. Like two minor league A ball teams playing, and we got like 8,000 fans or something. So that's like the most people I'd ever played in front of. And then I was able to go back there in 2005 when I got organizational pitcher of the year. So me, the position player was Nelson Cruz, who got the award. So here's me and Nelly standing on the field, and he was in uniform because he got, he was called up in the big leagues. I wasn't. I'm wearing like khakis. But I'm on the field and I'm like watching what a real game looks like with all these fans. I'm like, this is crazy. And I think people forget how loud it is. Like it's loud on the field, which is good, which is great because you just feel that energy. But of course, getting to the big leagues, and then now that I do broadcasting, I'm there all the time. I get to see how much people love this game, the tailgating that goes on, just people, how much they know the game, right? They know it. It's not just like a cool thing. It's like, oh, I'm just showing up because it's baseball. It's like, no, these people are fans. The people I get to run into, the fans that have scorebooks, I love it. Some of my favorite people. They have different color pens, and they're keeping score on everything. It's awesome. It's the way I grew up. My mom, would score our games in Little League,
Oh wow.
and I used to chart games in the minor leagues when I wasn't pitching. That's what we had to do. We had to sit in the stands, and so you get to. That's just true love. And you don't get that everywhere. Because I've been around to different places, and you just don't see that kind of commitment. But one thing that Milwaukee has is one of the best fan bases for like, I don't know how they talk, like per capita population or whatever it is. They have one of the best fan bases. Like it's the model that other teams are trying to figure out. Like what did Milwaukee do so right that other organizations need to do? And it's special. When you're there, you get it. You walk in, you're like, and there'll be people that work there that have worked there for 20 years. That's the kind of, you're walking into a family. And so I'm just happy to be a part of that family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, speaking of long tenured Brewers, in my opinion, Craig Counsell, being a player for them and now manager for a little bit, and now he's a manager for the Chicago Cubs. And talk about your teammate Craig Counsell. What was he like on the field? And obviously, a great manager. And tell our fans, what are the Cubs been getting in him in Craig Counsell?
Yeah. I mean, clearly the Cubs wanted him because
Yeah,
I guess Ross he was still had a job. It wasn't like they were trying to fill a position. They paid Craig a ton of money to get him. So good for him. Yeah, I texted Craig after he got the job. And honestly, I mean, it's going to be good for baseball. like if it wasn't already Cubs versus Brewers, as a game of the week or the series of the week, like now it's, turned up to 11. It's going to be crazy. But they're getting a good manager. I mean, the Brewers wanted to keep him. But at the same time, they had Pat Murphy, who,
yeah.
has been Craig's right-hand man and knows what the culture is and what, they're trying to do as a team organization. So, the Brewers are like, all right, we can't afford this guy. We have another guy that's just like him. So that's a good thing. But Craig's always been that way. One of the first, I mean, just kind of seeing his leadership in the clubhouse. The guy's a winner, wins World Series, a couple of times, and baseball that way for him, even though he's not the main guy. Like he's not the guy on the mound. He's not the guy hitting 40 bombs. But he is a wealth of knowledge. For example, when they dropped me down in 2010 sidearm, one of my first things I realized is that lefties were going to get a good look at me. So if I'm a sidearm righty, a left-handed hitter is supposed to do damage against this guy. That's like the one guy they want to face. If you're a lefty, if you're a righty and you're facing a sidearm lefty, you're like, thank you.
Yeah.
This is an extra base hit waiting to happen. So we were on the big league field in spring training, and I saw Craig out in left field. So I ran over there and I started talking to him about, I'm like, hey, so they're switching me sidearm, and he knew that. I was like, how would I get a lefty out? Like, what would be the left-handed approach? Because in my mind, Craig Counsell at that time, as a left-handed hitter, had faced more types of pitchers than probably any other lefty that we had on the team. Like, this guy just knows pitchers. He just has seen every type of guy. And he was like, well, number one, I'm not going to do anything until I just know for a fact you're going to throw a fastball away. Like, I am looking for a ball moving away from me, and I'm going to hit it to left field every time. He's like, I know I'm going to see that. If I see 4 pitches, I'm going to see one of those. If I see 5, I may see 2 of those. So right away, he knew exactly. He was telling me the mindset of a lefty that's going to be facing me. So that I did not have. That's the kind of guy he is. He didn't hesitate either. He was just telling me exactly what his approach would be if he was facing me, which I never got to face him, which is, probably good. But just seeing the way he, was, you knew he was going to be a coach. Yeah. That's just the kind of guy he was. Another example, after we made playoffs and the season was over in 2011, he called me one day. I was actually working out in the off season here in Nashville, and he was asking me because they overlooked a clubby, I think, with the playoff shares. Mm-hmm. And, because you make playoffs, it's like all these shares, like everybody gets a share. And so somebody got overlooked. And so what he did is he went and figured out, because you got a check, right? Or whatever it was. And he figured out exactly all the shares and how much it would take to make up that share. Like, it was a big math thing. I don't know if he did it or somebody else did it, but he called and he was like, hey, this is what we're doing. And I was like, sweet, man. If somebody else would have called, somebody it'd be weird, but Craig was the guy to call. Craig's like, hey, this is what we're doing. I'm like, sweet, there you go. Wow. But I don't know. He took that responsibility on himself, and I always respected that. A guy that doesn't shy away from those kind of moments. So yeah, it's no surprise of the success he's had in the big leagues.
Yeah, that division will be competitive now with the Cardinals, Brewers, and now Cubs coming back soon. So that it's gonna be fun to watch in that division. And Craig Count, they gotta, like you said, they wanted him, they got him, they paid the money, and he's the highest paid manager now in the big leagues. And we have another fan question here. One of our fans wants to know, if the right opportunity comes up, would you consider being a pitching coach or a bench coach?
Oh, I would love to. I don't know if my wife would let me or not, because it's kind of the same thing. It's the baseball life without the reward of playing, and I keep saying it's a tough life. It really is. I mean, you are gone a lot, right? You're gone. And coaching is just difficult as well. I think I could do it, honestly. I don't think I would want to go back and coach like A ball or rookie ball or even double A. I feel like now where I'm at, or my gifts is in like the AAA big league sector of talking more than like instructing. I don't think I'd want to be a rover that goes around and tries to change guys' mechanics or anything like that. My expertise, I feel like, is in philosophies. What are you trying to do as a pitcher? What is this hitter trying to do? What is the situation? There's so many variables that go on, and I think that gets lost. High school, it gets overlooked big time. College as well. I think once you get into pro ball, you start looking at, okay, well, everybody's kind of good, and your stuff is good, and you're pitching well, and you can do everything right. You can have the best pitch, and you can have the best scouting report, and the catcher's on the same page, and the umpire has the perfect zone, and the wind's blowing in, and you got, you throw the exact pitch right where you want, has the action that you want on it, and the hitter can be fooled, and he can swing one-handed and break his bat and dump it out in the right field, and 2 runs score, and your ERA goes up. Like, how do you coach that? Right? Like, you did everything right, and it didn't work out. And I think there's a big chunk there where I've only had a couple of coaches I can even think of that have addressed that, where it's like, you can do everything right and fail. What do you do? Because as a pitcher, immediately, even as a hitter, you're like, I got to change something. Yeah. You sit there and you go, okay, that didn't work. So the next batter, I got to make the slider even better. This curveball worked. This fastball needs to be here. It's like, sometimes you don't always have to change something. It's just, you got beat. and you didn't do anything wrong. It just didn't go your way because you couldn't control it. You didn't control that situation. You can only control what you can control. And that is a very hard thing. And so as a player, I feel like as the years went on, I realized how little control we had. But the way I was coached at times, it was like, yeah, you can control this kind of stuff. It's like, nah, man, no. And so I think I could come in and really speak to guys with what they're trying to do and what their philosophy is, and then how to deal with it if it doesn't work. Because I mean, you can do everything right and fail, and that's hard to deal with. If you do everything right and it works, you're like, sweet, it's justification on everything I've done to get to that point. Or you can do everything wrong and somehow still have success. So what does that look like? And I don't know. It's a big mental thing. Like for me, I would love to talk deep into that. I actually started a thing called Dim Zoom for high school, college, even some pro guys, where I can just get on a Zoom call like this right here and just talk baseball.
Wow.
Where they're at. Like, hey, I'm a first baseman. I'm struggling hitting. It's like, okay, let me tell you what pitchers are thinking. It's like, okay, I'm a pitcher. I'm trying to get this guy out. It's like, okay, let me tell you what hitters are thinking. Just because I felt like I've had multiple angles, and now as a broadcaster, I get to be the guy that has the bird's eye view and and sees it all. That's what I love about being in the booth broadcasting, because sometimes you don't see during commercials everything going on, and so you're at the game, you get to see it, and you're going, oh, I wouldn't be surprised if this happens, and then it happens, and you feel like Tony Romo, and you're like, oh, this is so great. It happens maybe once a game where I'm actually right on something, but but it's about getting it right. It's about looking for this stuff. It's about seeing the thing behind the thing. It's not just, oh, he happened to hit a home run. It's like, no, it goes back to the at bat before, when the guy got him out with this, and he made the adjustment looking for this pitch, and boom, pitcher gave it exactly what he wanted. Like there's a backstory going on with everything that happens in baseball.
Wow. Yeah, speaking of, before we get to broadcasting, obviously the fans can't see the backdrop right now, but I love your backdrop. You guys have a mixer of different activities going there. But I want to get to one, that backdrop over there with the jersey number 17. That team honored you. I saw a picture of you and your family there. Talk about that moment. Tell our fans about that moment, and what did that mean to you?
Yeah, so I played 18 seasons in professional baseball. I got maybe 1 year in the big league. So I think altogether maybe 16 full seasons of minor league baseball.
Wow.
And I think nine of those came in a Nashville Sounds uniform. So I wasn't from Nashville, and my first year there was 2007. And so we liked the city, and we're like, well, we're just going to live our lives here. So my wife and I, we stayed here. All three of my kids were born in Nashville, and I didn't know I was going to be a part of their organization as many years as I was, but ended up being their all-time leader in innings and wins, appearances, maybe. I'm trying to think what else. Most hit batters, most strikeouts, most walks, most home runs given up, all that cool stuff. So yeah, they retired my jersey, and they don't have a bunch of retired jerseys. They have Don Mattingly's jersey retired. So, I mean, I guess I'm in pretty elite company, but yeah, they made it a whole day, and I took my family to the field, and we were on the field, and I got to throw the first pitch out to my oldest boy. And, I kind of cut it. It was a bad throw, but we don't remember that part. We just remember the fun. But it was great. It was great. They didn't have to do that, but I think for me being with that organization so long, and, just living in the area, they were like, this is a perfect combination. And what's interesting is the Brewers didn't sign me back at the end of 2008, 18, sorry, not 18, get my decade wrong. So the Rangers came in, they got Nashville, and they reached out to me, and they're like, hey, are you still playing? We want you to come and, be a Ranger. And they brought me to big league camp. So 2019, I was kind of a back burner guy, a just in case guy. I'm the oldest guy on the team. Just in case something happens, I don't even think I started opening day on the active roster. But what ended up happening between the big leagues and AAA, they had a lot of moves. And so I ended up pitching more innings in AAA than any other player in AAA, AA, anybody in the minor leagues. I threw more innings than them.
Wow.
Ended up getting a bunch of starts. And so here I am having success with another affiliation with the Sounds. So even when I was done with the Sounds as a Brewer, I came back, I was with the Sounds as a Ranger, if that's not confusing enough for people that aren't experts on the minor leagues like myself. But yeah, it was pretty awesome. I've known the management there for many years, and Yeah, it's a good family to be a part of as well. So you got your Nashville family, you got your Milwaukee family, and it's fun because they take care of their own, and it's good to be a part of it.
Speaking of the Rangers, what was it like seeing them winning their first World Series after 52 seasons?
Yeah, it's good. I still know a lot of people there, a lot of great people. Some of the the guys there are special, and it's good. I think you could see the vibe. The Brewers. I was actually there in Texas when the Brewers came through, just got swept by the Dodgers, and I think the Brewers swept the Rangers that series,
Mm,
3 games or 4 games, whatever it was, and then went on a tear. The Brewers got hot, and the Rangers were slumping bad.
yeah.
But I mean, you could tell they were good. I don't think it was a surprise. I don't think people should be surprised how good they were. They had some great names. They only had to make a few adjustments as far as like pitching and stuff, and but you could tell they could put up runs and they could keep runs off the board. They were good. The Brewers beat them, but you could tell. And I was just talking to some of the guys, some of the coaches and stuff. You knew they were going to be in playoffs. It was just a matter of time, and man, they took it and ran with it. So I'm happy for them. I mean, I really am. There, I know a lot of the people there, and it was they knew it was coming, and good for Chris Young too, who
Oh
takes
yeah.
over, and he's only been there 2 or 3 years, and for him to kind of turn everything around like that, good for him.
And plus, is some at least we witnessed something new this year with the Diamondbacks and the Rangers, something unique where
Mhm.
we haven't seen before. And even though like some people say the ratings were low, but it was an interesting World Series. Both teams were competitive, and Diamondbacks made it for a run, but Texas came out on top.
Well, I mean, if you're the person selling the merch, and if you're the ratings people, then like, yeah, maybe you're not going to get your best thing, but good for the Rangers fan
Yeah,
base, good for the Diamondbacks fan base. I mean, they needed that,
yeah.
right? It's been several years, and that should bring they should have more fans going into next season. And good for the Rangers. They built that huge dome and all that. So yeah, it's even though maybe overall it's like, oh, okay, well, I'm a Yankees fan. I'm not watching this. It's like, okay, you don't have to. But true baseball people watched, and it was good. It was good baseball.
Yeah, so a couple more things here before we let you go. Tell our fans what's it been like for you being a broadcaster now, from your playing career and covering the team that you play for, especially that must be extra special for you. So what's that been like for you doing that? And when did the impressions start, man? Because I saw the video with Tim Kirchin. That was funny. I was laughing with Nigel Morgan and Aaron Boone, I guess, on the side. But talk
Yeah,
about
right.
that. When did the impressions happen?
Oh,
Also,
the impressions have been there forever. Like I just being a youngest, of 3 boys, like just trying to be relevant and funny, and I've always tried to make jokes, and I like to make people laugh, and I like to have a good time, and I don't know, I always enjoyed. It probably started with Harry Carey because
okay.
we had 3 channels growing up, and we had WGN, and it was the Cubs, right? You're watching Harry Carey, and then Will Ferrell actually
Oh,
making fun of Harry Carey
yeah.
was fantastic. Like, if the moon was made of baby back spare ribs, would you eat it? Uh, but I would do stuff like that on the baseball field. We'd have these meetings. I mean, meetings about meetings, especially in spring training. You just have so many meetings. You have, I mean, you could name umpires meetings to, nutritional meetings to MLB PA meeting, MLB security meeting. You have a meeting about a meeting, just like we're doing right now. We have a Zoom meeting. That's what it
Yeah.
says at the top of my screen. Just meetings. And so you have this lag time, and it gets kind of stale. And I don't know, older guys would be like, Dillard, go do a skit, like go do something funny. Be funny, man. So I would just make fun of players, or I would make fun of coaches, or whatever. And ended up kind of being a thing. So I would do Harry Carey. I'd put a wig on and glasses, and I'd be like, hey, who's this guy? Hey, what's your name? And it's like LaTroy Hawkins, like, hey, LaTroy, you a rookie? Like, no, I've been playing 20 years, like, okay, yeah. Made fun of Trevor Hoffman to his face
Oh wow.
once. That was hilarious. Uh, but
Did
yeah, just stuff like that. And Tim Kirchin,
Yeah.
which he was super popular at that time, and I started making fun of him in playoffs 2011,
Mhm.
in between or after games or before games, and guys loved it, and so it got around to him. So I actually know Tim Kirchin. He actually texted me a couple of weeks ago to see how I was doing.
Good.
He called me every Sunday, Saturday or Sunday, every day or every week, while I was going to the field to do broadcasting,
Oh,
because he heard I got when I became a broadcaster, he wanted to help me. And so he just talked to me for like 20 minutes about the broadcasting world. So even though I was making fun of him, it doesn't mean I didn't like him. He's an awesome person. And he's taken a special interest in me, which is fantastic. And but Tim, he's kind of a unique guy. And I talked to Niger Morgan. Um, I don't know. That's how I learned as a kid. You have a teacher, and my favorite teachers are the ones that had something unique about them. They weren't just trying to look prim and proper. They're the ones that were had a certain mannerism or a voice or liked to use certain words. And I'm very observant in that way. I think baseball makes you super paranoid about picking up little nuances here and there. And so to people that I would imitate, I'm sorry. But it was how I learned. And I would remember a pitching coach, and how he would phrase something just because of the way he said it. If anyone else said it, it wouldn't have worked. But however that coach said it. So yeah, if you're a teacher, coach, broadcaster, whatever it is, like, don't be afraid to be unique. Some people learn that way. They learn the phrases you say or remember what you're trying to give them by how you come across and how you do it. So yeah, I would just spring training, they'd call me up in these meetings and I would just, go around and make fun of everyone and everybody would laugh.
Yeah, so obviously now you've been around the team as a broadcaster for a couple of years, and talk about there's been rumors going around that Corbin Burns might get traded. So talk about, do you think they'll trade him or do you think he'll stay?
I have no idea.
Hmm.
I mean, they don't have to trade him.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still signed throughout the entire season. So, I mean, if best case scenario, they have him and, they go to the playoffs. Yay. Worst case scenario, they lose. It's like trade him. That's every team does that. But they may want to, if they're going to try to get more for him, maybe they trade him now. I don't know. Luckily, that's not my expertise. I don't know contracts and service time and all that. And a lot of times, to be honest with you, players don't really care. That's what the agent's for.
Yeah.
Hey, you got to strike while the iron's hot, kind of stuff. Like, if you're a GM or baseball president operations consultant person or whatever they title themselves, they're in charge. Like, their whole thing is geared towards, how can we maximize every single player? And that's their job. And players know that. So as far as me being a broadcaster, like, I love watching the guy pitch. I love watching it is the cat and mouse game to the nth degree, because when he is on, you can just see it. You can see the other dugout. They're all talking to each other. Like, what are we going to do? How do we get to this guy? What are you seeing? What am I seeing? And he's a very special pitcher, because even if his cutter's not working, he'll just pull out another pitch out of nowhere. And all of a sudden it's, he has 5 punch outs on it. And you're just like, what? He threw 4 changeups in one game, last game. And then now he's throwing 20 changeups and he has 5 punchies on it. And you're like, what? Like, does another team put out a game plan against a guy that he just wings it in that way? Like, he has a set detailed what he's trying to do, but if he executes it, he does great. And if something's off, he figures out what else will work. And I'm telling you, it's so much fun to watch. So selfishly, I hope they keep him, of course, because I know Corbin, he's fantastic. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they traded him, if they feel like his value is the highest now. But I also wouldn't be surprised they keep him, because the Brewers they make playoffs a lot, and he's a guy that can get them there.
And also, if they do decide to keep him, they got to find a way to bring back your former teammate, Brandon Woodruff, who's currently a free agent. And Woodruff is, I don't know, I'm surprised he's not getting any other teams yet. But Woodruff, he amazing pitcher also. So they got to find a way to bring him back if they end up keeping Burns.
Yeah, I mean, I know Woody. Woody lives actually like 5 minutes from my parents' house. So, my brother saw him the other day. I think my dad too. Yeah, Woody's awesome. Love him. He's one of my favorite teammates of all time. He was in a lot of my little videos I would make in the clubhouse.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we had a great time. He's a phenomenal pitcher. He's dealt with some injuries lately, which is obviously kind of in, the boat that he's in right now, but he will not have a problem getting a job.
Yeah.
As soon as he's healthy, he could post a video of him throwing a bullpen and it would just be, team after team coming his way. That won't be a problem. I think selfishly, as a Brewer tied to the Brewers, it's like, man, how can you let this guy go? But it financially, I mean, that's the right move. I think they knew that was coming. I think they know how hard it was, but they have to make that move. It would be negligent if they were like, no, we're going to pay you all this money. We'll bring you back and do that. So I think they both knew that. Hopefully, yes. Hopefully he gets healthy. Hopefully Brewers just sign him back and, they kind of put it behind him. But if he goes with another team, especially a team that's going to play the Brewers, look out.
So one final thing here from one of our fans wants to know best moment right now so far as a broadcaster.
Probably this one right here. Yeah. Best moment as a broadcaster. Man, I've had several. So I get to see Bob Uecker like every home game, but that I'm there in Milwaukee. So that is every time I see Uecker around him, it's wonderful. I never gets old because he is an absolute legend. But I also I get to meet a lot of people. I met Steve Stone last year in Chicago. Playing the Brewers playing the White Sox. That was awesome. Talked to him for like 2 hours. I could not believe it. I don't know. I met Nomar Garciaparra. I've seen Luis Gonzalez. Talked to Barry Larkin one day. What's funny about being a broadcaster is you get to see all these people like in the restroom.
Yeah.
You're walking the hallways. You're sitting down. You're eating in the cafeteria. I was talking to Ron Darling one day a couple years ago in New York. Just talking to him and he's like eating ribs, right?
Oh.
So he's just eating ribs, talking about broadcasting. And I'm just like, this is crazy. Met John Crook in Philly.
Wow.
Who didn't love, the Phillies at that time? John Crook,
yep.
Lenny Dykstra, all those guys, Darren Dalton, like, Mitch Williams, like that. You have these legends and they're kind of over it. They're kind of like, yeah, I was good. I'm like, are you kidding? Like I can close my eyes and picture like all your baseball cards because I had them. It's pretty special. Just to me, my favorite part is if you're in the booth doing the game, it's like you're sitting in the bullpen. It's like you're sitting in the bullpen talking with your buddies of like, all right, see, this guy's hit the ball, opposite field the first two at bats. Yeah. He's thinking, hey, he's looking to go away. We got to pitch him in. That you're watching for these nuances. But then when you're actually not in the booth doing the game, you get all the benefits around it. So you get to ride on the team plane. You see all the big leaguers, hanging out. You get to talk to the coaches, and then you get to meet everybody else's broadcasters, which is really cool. It's probably cooler for me than them because they're probably like, who are you? When you look in the booth next to you, because they usually have glass and you can see them, and you realize I'm doing the same job as Barry Larkin. What? That's ridiculous. And so anyway, hopefully nobody finds that out and fires me. That I'm just not, up to snuff like some of these guys. These guys are Hall of Famers, and it's really cool to just hear its stories, and you get to see how much people love the game of baseball. And there's a lot there. Met Oral Hershiser in LA.
Yeah.
God, that was awesome. Hearing him tell stories and talk and for an hour, that was a good one. So yeah, all those moments are my favorites.
Wow. So there you have it. Former MLB pitcher Tim Dillard live on the show. Man, I can't thank you enough. This was awesome. Great show. Awesome story. And thank you to our fans who tuned in and asked awesome questions also to Tim. Where can our fans find you on social media?
Yeah, so there was like a bunch of Tim Dillards when I signed up for social media. So you're gonna have to go to @DimTillard. That's what John Axford used to call me, Dim Tillard, all the time. He used to change everybody's letters in their names. So and anyway, it kind of stuck. And I'm Dim Tillard on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And yeah, my messages are open too. So if you ever have a comment or want to say anything, that's how we hooked up, right? That's how easy it is. That's what I love about social media. I think it's probably awful. It's evil maybe at times, but I try to use it for good. I don't put anything out there that my kids couldn't watch or read. And I enjoy. This is how you meet people. Is the easier to find people than you ever could, just because you can message them. So yeah, don't worry. If you message me, I'll probably message you back.
Thank you, Tim, for joining the show. We'll stay connected, and we'll love to have you back on the show eventually, and hopefully meet you in person. But keep up the great work, and this was awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.